Coming up next on Public Access TV is Fan to Fan, the book game, where we look at the game of publishing books. Today, our guests are Janis Luedke, a Natick-based artist and author of a creatively designed children's book called The Hearts That Fell Out of the Sky, and Lynne Damianos, who works with authors to publish their books. Stay tuned. This will be creative, and it may warm your heart. Welcome to Fan, the book game. I'm your host, Dave Hornfischer, a book fan, and I'm excited to look at the game of book publishing, where we talk to people who get their book ideas into print and those who helped them. Today, my guests are children's book author Janis Luedke, author of a creatively designed children's book called The Hearts That Fell Out of the Sky, and Lynne Damianos, a local publisher who works with authors to help publish their books. Welcome, Janis and Lynne, and to Fan, the book game. Why don't we start with you, Janis, and tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing books when merging these with your artistic skills.
Well, I grew up mostly in the Wellesley, Massachusetts area, and my family spent a fair amount of time when I was a child living in Paris, France, and in England. And in England, at school, I had to write a composition every single weekend, which was really a hardship at that time, but it disciplined me to come to a place where I was writing regularly. I also did a lot of arts and crafts with my mother. She was one of the big influences on my life. Mm-hmm. And therefore, when I grew up, I moved out to Denver and Los Angeles for 19 years, and I was very influenced by the landscape there, by the color of the soil, by the mountains, the ever-changing light, the texture of the environment, and especially by the Latin culture and the bright colors that they used. So that very much influenced my career and my palette as an interior designer and an artist.
And some of those are seen in this photo that we have of one of your early artistic images, or I don't know, maybe it wasn't an early one. But
yes, this is one of my mosaics that I did with pieces of little paper that I pasted and painted. Mm. So then I went on a 3-month sailing trip up the Inland Passage to Alaska, and I was very influenced by the fact that I decided that I had to draw every day. So I took pieces of paper and tore them up into little pieces so they wouldn't fly away in the wind, and on our sailboat. And I drew every day, and it became very boring because it was inclement weather for 75% of the time. So there were gray trees, gray water, gray sky. So then I became very impressionistic and abstract, and I started using color, and that's probably the one incident, the one trip that really influenced my becoming an artist. Mm-hmm.
And then what got you into publishing a book like this with all these bright colors? And
well, I went to Mexico to take an abstract art course, and it was such a wonderful place. It was very inspiring, lots of flowers blooming and beautiful architecture. And our instructor told us I'll show you how to draw a quick little abstract person. So he said, draw a carrot and draw a circle on the carrot, and there you have a quick person. So I was drawing this over and over again, and I was there for a week, and I didn't sleep much that week because I was too excited about being there. So one night at 3 a.m. I was drawing this carrot and circle over and over and over again, and all of a sudden the circle became a heart.
And that began to be this book cover that became with this great cover, right?
Exactly. The first thing that came to mind was heart heads. And I thought, these heart heads have some kind of purpose. So I started drawing sketches and of them coming to Earth. I didn't feel like they were Earthlings. I felt like they were exactly. Yeah. And actually, these were the people that I drew right before they became the heart heads. So I started drawing these whimsical little pictures of how the Heartheads could come to Earth and have these whimsical little experiences on Earth.
And that advanced into this next image, I think.
Yes. So yeah, so this is what the Heartheads looked like when I first started drawing them. I kept them very ethereal, no faces, no limbs, so that they would, continue to look very otherworldly. And so these sketches soon became acrylic paintings, little paintings on paper. And I felt like they really had a purpose, and so I was trying to figure out what their purpose was, and eventually it evolved into the fact that they needed to come to Earth to teach people how to live in their hearts, because they had heart heads.
And that became a storyline and became the cover of the...
That's right.
Yeah.
And so basically the Heartheads live on this planet way out in the universe, very peacefully. But one day they hear all this moaning and groaning from Earth, and people are saying, I hate my neighbors, I'm mad, I'm sad. So the Heartheads decide that they have to do something, and they come down to Earth in their spaceship with armloads full of red hearts. And they drop them on all the Earthlings and teach us how to live in our hearts. So the next step was, then they had to teach people how to build heart houses and heart orchards so that they could keep hearts around them. And then, as every story needs an antagonist, there was an ogre who stole everyone's hearts. So the people went to the Heartheads and said, can you do something about this?
So this was all the storyline that was coming together. We got a picture here of the cover of the book.
Yeah.
The final cover, we'll take a look at that. And then we can get into some of the options here. This is kind of where it finally ended up, right?
Right.
And so you had this, and then you and how did you connect with Lynne, and get to, you had all these elements floating around in pictures and in your ideas, and you wanted to make a book out of it.
I decided I want to make a book, and I decided that the most flexible way for me to do it would be to do self-publishing. So I had Damianos Publishing in mind, and two other publishers. One was a very well-known self-publisher in California, and one was a self-publisher in Walpole. And the one in California was very remote, and I wanted to have a lot of control over what happened. And it was more expensive. So then I talked to the Walpole people, and I didn't have good chemistry with them at all. They didn't even need to meet with me in person, and I just wasn't crazy about them. So I came to Damianos and had a wonderful meeting with Lynne and Lisa Thompson, the graphic designer, and Brett Peruzzi. They all loved my idea, and I was about halfway through writing the book, and they had great suggestions for what I could do, and we just had wonderful chemistry, and I loved the fact that they're in Framingham and I'm in Natick.
So Lynne, how did you get involved in this then? You were, she reached out to you, and just briefly talk a little bit about your business here and what Damianos Publishing does, and how that how you convinced her that you were the right match.
Well, I don't believe that I convince anybody. They convince themselves.
Well,
but as a hybrid publisher or a publishing partner, we're somewhere in between the do-it-yourself self-publishers and the traditional. So we basically pull out whatever we need to do to help an author. So in this case, her book was about halfway written. She was very clear about what she wanted to do. So for editing, it was really just for consistency. And then for the design, she already had her illustrations, etc. And basically it was about putting the book together as a package for her. And one main difference was that Janis had kind of laid out the cover in her mind. And although it was something that we liked, we thought it could be a lot stronger by featuring...
we have an image of the cover, that early one anyway. Yeah.
Sure.
Right behind me for one.
We had the idea of really featuring one main image rather than a series of them to make a stronger initial impression. And I think some authors don't want to have necessarily an interior image on the cover because they want to have something different inside, but we really like the idea of drawing people in, and Janis's images were so strong that we decided to, on the next slide, show the final result that we had come up with. And then, of course, picking the font, Janis and our designer worked all of that out so that it was something light but readable, that type of thing.
I fell in love with this cover. This represents me. It's very bold. It's very colorful. The writing is very informal. I wanted it to be very sort of grassroots, and good contrast between the fonts and the lettering and the background. I was very, very happy with this cover.
And were there any other things that you kind of worked on, the storyline itself, or was that pretty much together by the time you got involved, Lynne?
Well, that was really Janis's thing. I
Yeah,
don't
it was
think
her
that
story. And
anyone really influenced her. That was all internal. And this also came at a good time because really, the pandemic was happening and people really needed a great message. And although it's harder to sell something in the middle of a pandemic, the story was just so marvelous and everyone just fell in love with it.
So why don't we dive into the book a little bit? You started to talk a little bit about it, Janis, but we got a few of the images here from the book. I think the first one is the spaceship itself with the characters landing.
Right. So this is the Hardheads are coming from their planet, and they've got all the red hearts and armloads full of red hearts, and they also have their other provisions, and they're about to hop into their spaceship and come down and drop them on all the Earthlings.
Now, did you do this whole image, or did you have someone helping you with this?
No, I did all the illustrations.
Oh, okay, you did all the illustrations.
They're acrylic paint on paper. Yeah, small. I did small, like 8 by 10 paintings.
Okay. And then let's see, we go on to
So they come down to Earth, and they dropped all the red hearts on all the Earthlings, on the snails and the cats and the dogs and the flowers, and transformed everyone so that they all had, we all live in our hearts.
It's too bad they couldn't have been in Washington with Congress.
Well, I think they're infiltrating as we speak.
I think this is just such a great concept. And now the next one here, that's the.
So this is actually the last illustration in the book, when everyone on Earth is sharing the love, basically.
Oh, and that's that is such a universal message, isn't it? I mean,
it really is.
It's and now you mentioned that when we talked before that you may be taking this idea and going a little further with it.
Yes, I have a couple ideas for the second and third sequel. This would be the next one, where the Hardheads have now done their mission on Earth, and everything is transformed. So they're sitting on their planet one day, talking about old times, and saying, "Oh, we went to Earth. Wasn't that fun?" And so they said, "Let's go back. Let's go on vacation." So they come back down to Earth, and they rent a car. Of course, they have to get a convertible because they won't fit in any other car. And they go on vacation. So they go out Route 66 and check out all the root beer stands. And so this is just one of the possible images.
So this is in process then, the second book?
It's in process.
Will you be working with Lynne on doing some more of that?
No doubt.
How would you kind of take this, Lynne, to the next step here with there's probably a lot less to do because she's got obviously a lot of this together.
Well, a lot of it is that when you create something new, but as part of maybe a series, you want to have some kind of consistent look about it, or some elements, for example, on the cover that tie it together. So maybe there's the general layout, or some of the colors or fonts that are used, so that it gives you the feeling, even without reading it, that there is consistency there.
Yeah, I'm doing my next show with an author who's got a bunch of mysteries, and he uses the same characters in a bunch of them. I can see the same kind of thing here. Do any of these characters get personalized so that this is like Tom the big guy, or well, these are people on Earth for the most part, so
Yeah.
you're not going to personalize this so that one of them won't be David Ortiz or.
They're all pretty
you know,
impersonal. No,
yeah,
they're not
okay,
named.
you're not going to get to anybody.
Yeah.
That's probably risky.
Yeah, I mean, too complicated for me to remember, basically. But also, I'm thinking of even using the cover as a template, where the layout will be the same. It just might have a different image or whatever. But
yeah.
I'd probably use maybe the same font or something, or maybe make it a different color so that it's distinctive.
Yeah, that is a challenge to take this onto the next level. It's, in music it's the one-hit wonder, I guess, and you have to avoid that here and it sounds like you've got this kind of a plan going forward, I think, and it's just such a wonderful theme. It's just so universal. It just strikes the heart, I think, just looking at these.
Right.
Who's the audience for this? I mean, it would seem to be a children's book
Yeah.
at first glance, but I don't know, it struck my interest. I don't know, I think I might pick it up, and if I was having an argument with somebody, I might hand them the book and suggest that we both read it together or something.
Well, my main milieu for selling this book is farmers markets, and so I have sort of figured out who my audience is. My best audience is grandparents.
You got one here.
Yeah, educators and other people who are in social services, and young parents, usually if they're not accompanied by their children because they're too distracted. And so they seem to be the biggest audience for me. Even though this book is geared officially for ages 3 through 8, I have found that it has a much more universal appeal, and like you're saying, and it's required reading for all adults.
Yeah.
I like that, and I look at it as it's a book for children of all ages, not just children.
That's well put. Yeah, yeah. So in terms of doing publicity for the book, have you worked with Lynne on that, or is that something that you've done yourself?
Lynne has been a great supporter, and this is well above and beyond the publisher-client relationship, I think. She started out, I mean, some marketing was involved in our contract, but we've been in constant contact since it was published 3 years ago, and she's constantly, she invited me to be in the Saxonville open studios, and she's telling me all the time about events and leads, and she's a great marketer and a great supporter. And so, and the other ways that I've been marketing it are, I've had it, I do Facebook. I'm not a huge social media fan, but through the farmers markets and other art events, and I have a mailing list that I use quite frequently. And
yeah, the farmers markets. I mean, that takes time to do it personally for you.
Yeah.
But it really is a great way to get to meet people.
It is.
And to get a sense of reaction. You have some people probably go and are probably cynical about it, whereas others just look at it and fall in love with it instantly. And
yeah, and
and the way you already kind of characterize the different reactions that you got from different demographics, I thought was interesting. And as you go on to other books now, that probably can help you even.
Yeah, I mean, they have been farmers markets have been very valuable, and I love talking to people, and I love, nobody would come to my booth if I did not call them over. And so I always say, would you like to hear about the heart heads? And half the time they don't even hear me. They say, what? And so I
think you're talking about lettuce, yeah.
So I just said, if you like, I'll give you the 30-second synopsis so they know that there's a limit. And I said, and if they are still dubious, I say, I'm sorry, it won't be very painful. So, and most of the time I can get people's attention, by doing
yeah,
that. So.
Well, that's so creative.
And can I just throw in that
Sure.
initially, I think you were afraid to toot your own horn, and I've just seen how you've evolved and really gotten into it, and it's made such a difference, and it's really helpful for authors to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to be your own best fan, I guess, to a degree.
Absolutely, and you have to be you just have to be not humble about it either. You just go out and do it, and
Always be humble
have
and
the
kind.
guts.
Was a Tim McGraw song. And so have you got any reviews of this and in different places? I mean, is this where does a children's book get reviewed so that there's awards, I guess, and
Local Town Pages has reviewed it a number of times. It's in all the local libraries, and they've included it in a lot of their events. And I have looked into awards, but for the most part, they're so expensive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to pay all these entry fees.
Oh, wow.
And you're really basically buying an award. And so, I mean, I guess if I were very diligent and very rich, I might have, pursued that further, but I don't.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. I never knew you had to kind of buy your way in, so to speak.
Yeah, it's just the entry fees, like college or.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what, $100 or?
Some.
Really?
Some more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So we talked about the market to where it's sold. You have should I ask you how many you've sold? Have you sold 1,000 of them or?
I have sold probably around 400 to 500 in the
Okay.
last 3 years.
Uh-huh.
So I'm on the slow boat.
Okay.
But
And you're on Amazon.
yes, I'm on Amazon.
And have people been putting reviews on Amazon too?
No, because I'm not getting sales from Amazon for some reason.
Oh, you're not? Oh,
No,
really?
and actually, interestingly, every single person who comes to my booth walks away with my business card.
Yeah.
And I tell them exactly where it's available, but I haven't been getting sales from Amazon. I'm not sure why. All my sales come from farmers markets.
Well, that's
like
interesting.
Book by book.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, that's a hard way to sell them, but
Yeah.
yeah. And has it been mostly so it's been mostly in the New England area. So, is there an opportunity, Lynn, for her to get her distribution a little wider?
Well, any online sales are possible, and a lot of that has to do with social media and different events and things like that. So one of the things that I do is I try to post on a regular basis about events, if Janis is doing something, or have you read this book, etc. And it's just interesting. Some people will, she's doing very well with her book, like she said, locally. A lot of times people like to order things from Amazon because it's easy for them, especially if they're a Prime member.
Yeah.
But also our distributor, Silver Street Media, offers the book for the same price point, and they're local in Massachusetts as well. And it just really depends on the book itself. So a lot of it has to do with ratings and reviews of the book online, and also any sales help push you up to the top as far as searches. So it's something we're constantly working on.
You mentioned Silver Street Media. Well, tell me a little more about them.
Well, they're based in Agawam, Massachusetts, and they are our distributor and also our printer. So they have a sister company that does the printing, and then the printer fulfills the books, and then Silver Street Media actually sends them out, whether the books are purchased through them or through Amazon.
Okay, and so they're the ones who would send it to them. I mean, there's so few bookstores all of a sudden. Barnes and Noble is certainly the big one, and Wellesley has that nice little bookstore.
They're a big supporter.
Maybe it's not little. It's
Wellesley Books is a great supporter of our authors, and whatever we can do to get into the smaller independents is really a good thing.
Have you done book signings in different places?
No. I have done events at libraries.
Okay.
Where readings and that kind of thing. But I have tried to get into a handful of bookstores, and I finally gave up because what they're offering to buy my book for is more than I'm paying. It's more than I'm
charging. Yeah.
It's more than I'm paying for the book before I sell it. So I sort of gave up on bookstores, but there's always a future.
Yeah, okay.
Bookstores typically want 50% of the retail price of the book. And for a colorful book like this, that's a really hard nut to crack, because if it's a novel where there's no color on the inside, it's doable. But something like this, the cost of printing the book is so high, and it's becoming higher, that it's hard for an author to make money.
So who sets the price for the book? I mean, is the price of this about $20 or?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's set by so I help figure out the cost of printing, and then we figure out what the royalties would be if it's sold online, and we work that out with the author.
Well, we're kind of running a little low on time, and I wanted to get into some of the other stuff that you're doing. I know you just had this interesting program you put together called Colors in Motion.
Yes.
Can you talk, well, we've got a picture of that here, but
Yes.
talk a little bit about what that's all about.
Okay, well, I discovered that my cat likes to hold paper in her paws and chew off little pieces and distribute it pretty much all over the house. So I decided that I had to use these pieces of paper, and I made mosaics, such as the one you see here. This idea was picked up by a group called Colors in Motion. They do a monthly Zoom, which is a meditative video with music about people's artwork that they videotape. So they decided they wanted to do a Zoom for me, and so they did this Shadows Garden, where they videotaped my series of mosaics, and I wrote the Shadows autobiography in photographs and captions. And this was in a Zoom event like a few weeks ago. And it's still available on colorsinmotion.com if you want to see it.
Could you turn this into a book?
I'm taking, I think there's definitely more to be done about this.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what exactly it is, but we'll see.
So you've got one done. So what's the educational lesson that you've learned from this? I mean, I see you as an artist. I see you as an author. I see you as just a creative person. How does all this come together? And the classic question is, what are you going to be when you grow up on all this?
Well, I mean, the whole thing was a huge learning curve for me.
Of course.
How to write a book, how to illustrate a book, how to lay out a book, how to get a book published, how to market it, how to sell it. And it was a great foundation for future books, creating future books and selling them. So it took a lot of time, but now I'm kind of like over the hump, and I kind of know the process. So it'll be a lot easier in the future.
Any thoughts on that, Lynne, as to the way she's evolved working with you?
Absolutely. Well, I think she hit the nail on the head. And what a lot of authors have said to me, or I have felt since I did my first book, was that the first one's like giving birth. It's just hard. It's really difficult. You don't know exactly what to expect. And it takes longer and more work, a great deal more work than you might imagine. And you learn the pitfalls and what works and what doesn't. So the next book is far easier and smoother.
Right. And so the last thing in terms of asking where one can buy the book, we've got a little sketch here of Amazon. It is on Amazon, and hopefully we'll get this show out on enough places on YouTube and all that to stimulate some of these book sales on Amazon.
And also, if people want signed copies, they can send me an email, and I can send them one.
Okay, and they would send that email to? JAL@JALArts, which is JALARTS.com. JAL@JALArts.com.
That's correct.
Okay, well, is there a final thought here before we wrap this up?
It's been an incredible trip, and my favorite thing is when people come to my booth and I read them, or I tell them the synopsis of the story, and they put their hands on their hearts and they go, oh, like this.
Well, that's a great way to end this. Thank you both. You've been a great guest, Janis. Lynne, thanks for coming back and explaining how an author like Janis can work with a professional to take what's a very creative idea and turn it into this incredible book. So, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And those people out in TV land, come back again and watch us. We're going to be interviewing a number of authors here over the course of the next months, whatever. And we're on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays on local Framingham Access TV. And we will put this up on YouTube as well. So keep reading and keep watching. Good night.